Hey y'all, happy Thanksgiving. I know I've been promising you guys cooking tutorials, so today I'm taking you behind the scenes with me in my kitchen while I prepare Thanksgiving dinner, so stay tuned. So right now I'm preparing my collard greens, and I use kitchen shears to cut up my greens as it makes life so much easier as opposed to chopping them up. And you avoid cutting up your fingers. I was always on greens duty when I was younger. My grandmother didn't like raggedy greens, and I always cut the meat. So that was my job, to cut up the collard greens, y'all. So the greens are ready to cook. Now, before I cut these greens up to prep them, I wash them and I soak them in warm water with salt. That kills any bugs that may be hiding in there and remove all the grain and dirt that may be stuck in them. You have to wash the greens before you cook them, y'all. So we're about to get these cooking. I'm using this mini stock pot since I'm making a small batch of greens for myself and my son. It's just us. And greens cook down a lot, so this is not going to be a whole lot. So I have some boiling water with some salt, and I'm just going to pile the greens in the pot until it gets full. And then I'm going to cover up the pot and let the greens cook down some before I start seasoning them. So my greens have cooked down enough to start seasoning them. Now, I'm a pescatarian. I don't eat meat, so I make a vegetarian version of greens. And my secret to still getting that smoky flavor without adding like neck bones or smoked turkey necks or ham hock, liquid smoke. This is what I use. This stuff is so bomb. It tastes just like you use meat, and I use liquid smoke along with some sea salt, black pepper, hot sauce, and apple cider vinegar. And growing up, my grandma, she used chicken grease. If you want to add grease to your greens, you can use leftover fried fish grease. I'm going to omit that today. We're trying to eat healthy. Now let's go on ahead and season up these greens. So I start seasoning, then I season to taste as I go. And that's the sea salt. Add some freshly ground black pepper. I'm going to add some apple cider vinegar. My Nana always added the vinegar, and I like it for that kick. My greens is a combination of how my Nana and my grandma made it, because they both made it different. Anyway, I'm going to add some hot sauce. And I'm going to add a generous amount of that liquid smoke. And I'm going to cover the pot, let them greens cook down some more, and then I'll taste it and season it as we go along. Now I'm going to get started on my cake. I'm making a gluten-free skillet pineapple upside down cake. And I melted the butter, and now I'm going to add the brown sugar, dark brown sugar to the pan. And let that melt before I add the pineapples. Now the butter and sugar mixture is ready. I'm going to add some canned pineapple rings and some maraschino cherries. Maraschino cherries. And I'm going to set this aside so I can make the cake batter. Let's see how many rings I can get in this pan. Now I'm going to utilize my KitchenAid mixer to make the cake. And I'm going to start by whipping up the butter until it's nice and fluffy. And I'm using about 6 tablespoons of butter. I'm going to add some cane sugar. I use raw cane sugar, and it's grainier, so I put it in a mini food processor first to make it a finer grain before I use it to bake with. And I'm going to add that in with the butter and whip that up until it's nice and fluffy. I'm going to add my eggs. trying to be careful not to break it. Get no shells in my cake batter. I'm going to add some pure vanilla extract. No imitation vanilla over here, real vanilla. And I'm going to add a mixture of flour, salt, and baking powder. And I only use a dash of salt since I use salted butter, but I use King Arthur gluten-free measure for measure flour. Let me turn it over so you guys can hear me. I use King Arthur gluten-free measure for measure flour. It cooks everything up just like as if you were using regular flour, and it's gluten-free. I'm doing my best to eat gluten-free as much as possible because I'm not gluten intolerant, but I am sensitive to gluten. So let's get back to making this pineapple upside down cake. So I'm going to add that mixture of flour, salt, and baking powder. And I'm going to add it slowly to the rest of the ingredients. And I'm just going to take a baking spatula and get the ingredients off the side of the bowl so that everything can mix in good. And last but not least, I'm going to add some pineapple juice to my cake batter. And I'm going to mix that up until everything is well combined. Now I'm going to go ahead and pour that cake batter over the pineapples and the cherries and that brown sugar and butter mixture. And I'm just going to use the baking spatula to get the rest out of the bowl and make sure I coat everything evenly. And I preheat my oven to 350, so I'm going to go ahead and put that cake in there for about 45 minutes until a fork comes out clean. Now we're going to come check on these greens. They cooking down nice. It's time for another round of seasoning. Add some sea salt, some more black pepper. I taste it. Need a whole lot more vinegar. Another dose of that liquid smoke. And a generous dose of hot sauce because I like my greens spicy. And we gonna stir the pot, cover it up, and let them cook some more. I'm gonna leave these on low for a couple of hours. So this cake is done. I checked it with a fork, came out clean. I'm going to let this cool off for about 5 to 10 minutes before I flip it onto a cake plate. Alright y'all, so I'm gonna flip this cake and see how it turned out. It's my first time. Don't laugh at me if it breaks. Hopefully it doesn't. Oh, we did good. We just have a pineapple stuck. And I'm just going to take this pineapple out and stick it right back on the cake. And we should be good. Oh, that is gravy. Alright y'all, so now we're going to get into this potato salad. And I peeled and chopped up the potatoes and added them to the bowl. And I'm going to add some chopped onion and some chopped eggs to the bowl. So you get ready, mix this up real good. Now I'm going to add some sea salt and some black pepper. And I'm going to add a generous amount of sweet relish. When you think you added enough, add some more. I like a lot of relish in my potato salad. And I'm going to stop there for now. And I'm going to add some spicy brown mustard. If the potato salad is not yellow, it's not right. And I'm going to add some mayo. And we're going to start mixing that up. And then I'm going season it to taste if it needs more of anything. So I added a little more salt and black pepper, a little more onion, and some more sweet relish. And now it is perfect, just the way I like it. See, yellow, nice and yellow. And I'm just going to smooth it in the bowl. And I'm going to garnish it with some smoked paprika. If you use regular paprika, I'm telling you, try smoke. It just adds a whole nother level of flavor. And I'm going to cover that up and put it in the fridge until it's time to eat potato salad. Now it's time to move on to the macaroni and cheese. And I saw a trick on Instagram today to use your food processor to grate the cheese. I still grate by hand, so I'm going to try this. My food processor is old. I don't know if it had a grating attachment, but I can't find it. So we're about to just try it with the regular blade and see what happens. So I'm using a combination of yellow sharp cheddar, Vermont white sharp cheddar, and some seriously or extra sharp cheddar. And I'm just going So that actually worked. I just realized I need to cut the cheese in smaller pieces so it don't take as long. So I'm going to dump that in a bowl. And I'm going to go ahead and work on the rest of the cheese. So that actually worked out for me. The cheese is all shredded. Only thing I suggest is that you make sure your cheese is cold. Mine was room temperature because I usually let it sit for a while to make it easier to chop or cut or grate or whatever. But it got a little mushy, but it don't matter because it's going to get mushy when it melts in macaroni anyway. So I like that tip. So I usually make my macaroni and cheese in a cast iron skillet when I'm making a smaller amount. This might be too small. I might have to switch it. But I'm going to go ahead and try anyway. And I use gluten-free noodles when I make my macaroni and cheese. It tastes exactly the same. And I'm going to go ahead and add this cheese to the noodles. And I was able to make the cast iron skillet work. What I had to do is put the cheese and noodles in a bowl and mix it together and put it back in there. We're going to see. I may still have to switch, but for now I'm going to leave it. And I'm adding the butter. And I'm going to kind of just push the butter down in between the noodles. I don't really mix it up throughout the whole pan. Now I'm going to pour a mixture of milk. I use almond milk, egg, salt, and pepper over the mac and cheese. And that's what helps it all stick together. And this pan is crowded, but I always bake it with a cookie sheet underneath in case it drips. Because that might boil over and drip. And I'm going to top the mac and cheese with some smoked paprika. That not only adds some extra flavor, but it also helps it get brown and crispy. And I'm going to cover this up and put it in the oven and let it bake. Then I'm going to uncover it and let it bake some more so it can get brown and bubbly. And the greens are done, y'all. They turned out absolutely delicious, seasoned perfectly, nice and spicy with that kick from the vinegar, just the way I like it. Delicious. Now I'm going to do the candied yams, and I cut up these sweet potatoes. Usually to make it easier to peel, I pre-cook my sweet potatoes in the skin, and then I peel them and chop them up. So these are halfway cooked already. So I'm going to season them up, and I'm going to add some cane sugar. I don't grate it to put it in the yams. It'll cook down. Alright. And I'm going to add some brown sugar. And you always add a generous amount of sugar when you're making yams because the sugar pretty much cooks out. I'm going to add some nutmeg, and you don't want to add too much nutmeg because nutmeg tends to overpower the dish and give it a bitter taste and give you heartburn if you suffer from heartburn like I do. And I'm going to add some cinnamon, a generous amount of cinnamon because I love cinnamon. And I'm going to add some pure vanilla extract. No imitation stuff. Once again, you want to add the pure stuff. And I'm going to add some butter. And I'm going to add a splash of some orange juice to give some citrus flavor. And where is my big spoon? I'll find a random one. And I'm going to mix that up so that everything is coated nicely. And I'm going to add just a little bit of water, because I like the juice thick but not too thick. And that'll help coat everything up some more. And then I'm going to cover this pan and put it in the oven and let it cook until the yams are tender. So the candied yams went in the oven and the mac and cheese came out the oven. That is done. Now I'm going to prepare some stuffed shrimp, and I'm going to start by adding some butter to a cast iron skillet and let that melt. And I'm also going to add some olive oil to the pan, and I'm going to add some chopped onion and some crushed garlic. I'm going to add about 5 cloves of garlic. And I'm going to let the onions and the garlic saute in the butter and olive oil until they get tender and fragrant. So I'm making a stuffing mix for the stuffed shrimp. And I'm going to start with adding some cornmeal to the bowl. And I'm going to add some gluten-free flour. And I'm going to add a generous amount of Old Bay seasoning and some dried parsley. And I'm going to mix that up with a fork. I'm going to add some water. And now I'm going to mix up the mix, and I'm going to add some oil. I'm using canola oil, and you want to add enough so that the mix doesn't stick to the sides of the bowl. Once it's not sticking to the side of the bowl, you know you added enough oil. So I put the butter, olive oil, onion, and garlic mixture in a bowl and set that aside. And I'm going to use the same pan that I used to saute the onions and the garlic, and I'm going to add the stuffing mix to that pan and stick it in the oven until it turns to a bread. So the bread for the stuffing is done, and I'm just going to take the whole thing and put it in that bowl. And I'm going to use this spatula to break it up. And that's what it's looking like. And I'm going to add that mixture of olive oil, butter, onions, and garlic to the bowl. And I'm going to add some vegetable broth. And I'm just going to mix that up until the bread is nice and soft and everything is mixed thoroughly. Now my stuffing mix is all done. And I have some extra large shrimp that I seasoned last night with some Slap Your Mama seasoning. and some homemade green seasoning. I use Trini green seasoning to season my food. No, I'm not Trini. I'm American. My family's from down south, but I learned from an ex's mother, and I love it so much that I use the seasoning to season my food. So I'm going to add some oil, some olive oil to a pie dish. I usually use my cast iron skillet, but I needed to fry my fish. I only have two. The mac and cheese is in the other one. And I just realized that I forgot to split the shrimp when I season it. So I'm just going to season them down. Split them down. They're seasoned already. And I'm going to lay them down in the pan, butterfly, so that I can put the stuffing on top. So all of the shrimp are butterflied and laid nicely in a dish. And I'm just going to put a dollop of that stuffing mix on top of each one. I love stuffing, and occasionally I'll make it with vegan meat since I don't eat meat. But I've been making the stuffed shrimp for a couple of years now in lieu of the stuffing with vegan meat, and I like it better. This is my stuffing contribution to make sure I get my stuffing fix. And it's so good. So good. I absolutely love it. And all of the shrimp are stuffed generously. And I'm going to add a little bit of water to the pan, and I'm going to cover it with some foil. The water allows it to steam a bit so that the stuffing doesn't get dry. And I'm going to cover that, and I'm going to let that cook until the shrimp are cooked through, and then I'm going to let it brown, and that'll be done. Now all I have left to do is fry the catfish. All right, y'all, so I'm almost done. I am dirty. I am exhausted. I'm starving. Don't judge me. I've been in this kitchen all day. But your sister's almost done. It's almost time to eat. I'm about to fry up this catfish. And I split my fillets down the middle to make smaller pieces. And the same as the shrimp, I seasoned the catfish with some Slap Your Mama seasoning and my homemade green seasoning. And my green seasoning recipe is on my cooking blog, moremeals.com, along with a lot of these other recipes. All of them will be there, so I will link it for y'all. But I'm about to fry up this catfish. I'm going to coat it with some cornmeal and fry it up in a cast iron skillet. And by then, those stuffed shrimp and those candied yams will be done. It'll be time to eat. So let's get to frying this fish. And I put the catfish fillets in a baggie with the cornmeal, and I'm just going to shake it up and let the fish get coated up nice. Make sure it's nice and evenly coated. And now I'm going to add the catfish to the pan. So fry up. And I'm going to cover the pan with this splash shield so the hot grease don't pop all over me. I'm going to let it fry until it's crispy brown on each side. And the fish is ready for me to flip it over. Ooh, that's some big heavy pieces of fish. Ooh, nice and brown and crispy. And let it get crispy enough so that they don't break when I'm trying to flip them. Still having a hard time because my pan a little small. These are 10-inch cast iron skillets, and I have to get me a 12-inch one too. They're just so damn heavy. But the fish is flipped, and I'm going to cover that back up and let the other side get nice and crispy. So this batch of fish is done. And I'm going to take it out so that it can drain. And then I have one more batch of fish to cook. Like I said, it's just me and my son. So So I'm not frying up a whole lot of fish. I have 6 pieces. I'm going to add the next batch to the pan and cover it up. We gotta make room for that last piece. Alright, here we go. We'll cover that up and let it get brown and crispy. So the catfish is done. It's fried up nice and crispy. And the stuffed shrimp is done. That cooked up nice. Ooh, I can't wait to dig in. And the candied yams are finally done. Fresh out the oven. Nice and juicy. Let those sit and cool off for a bit. And that is everything, y'all. I am finally finished cooking. So that's it for my Thanksgiving meal prep, y'all. Everything is meat free. I'm a pescatarian. I don't eat meat, but I eat seafood. So everything is meat free and mostly vegetarian aside from the fish and the stuffed shrimp and the cheese. If you're a vegetarian that eats cheese, macaroni and cheese is fine. If not, you're vegan. You know, you can't eat that. The greens are vegan. The candied yams, well, it has butter. So let's just say vegetarian. Some stuff vegan friendly, but I am done cooking. I'm tired. I know I probably look frazzled. I'm hot, but I'm about to get out this kitchen and get into this plate. Thank y'all for joining me, and I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving.